No, I personally agree. I've never used carbon tetrachloride. I don't even know why it's on this list. Yeah. Yeah, never used it.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Tyson. I am a PhD candidate in chemistry at Yale as well as Berkeley. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting together the official organic solvent tier list. And I know you're probably wondering what makes it official, and it's simple. It's official simply because we've deemed it so. So I say we because for the first time in Fresh Professor history, I am not alone. So I went ahead and brought some of the homies here with me today. So I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, my name is Anthony. I'm a recent PhD graduate from Yale. And now I'm a postdoc at Vanderbilt.
How's it going? My name is James Kwan, and I'm a third-year PhD student at Yale.
All right, so with no further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And so I think that mostly, how do you guys feel? So I'm thinking that we'll probably just rank these guys based on their general utility in terms of, our experience with them in lab, maybe some offsets due to toxicity, these types of things. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, sweet, yo, let's get into it. So
acetone's one of my favorites because we use it to clean our glassware.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes without saying that acetone has definitely got to be an S tier level solvent. It's almost impossible to do any type of organic synthesis in the absence of acetone. You gotta throw some points on there for that. James, how you feeling, bro?
Right. S tier. I feel that.
All right, next we got Pseudo Nitro. How you guys feeling?
The only time I ever use it is when I'm making a sample for high-res mass spec. I don't use it as frequently as something like acetone, so I would place it a little bit lower, but what do you think, Anthony?
I recently used a lot of acetonitrile lately because I've been doing a lot of prep HPLC, so I would have to place acetonitrile a little bit higher, maybe like an A tier.
Yeah, A tier-ish, yeah.
Yeah, I think A tier sounds good. So Benzene I almost never use. I don't know about you guys. You guys can share how you feel about that.
Yeah, benzene's kind of scary for, it's toxic, high boiling, so it's difficult to get rid of sometimes. So I try not to use benzene too much. I was thinking D tier, to be honest.
Yeah. Me too.
I think that may actually put carbon tetrachloride in a similar vein in terms of toxicity, but let's go ahead and see what you guys think. So there's a reaction I used to do a lot that required me to use carbon tetrachloride. So if you would have asked me like 2 years ago, I probably would have given it a little bit of a rank, but I think it's even hard to buy carbon tetrachloride sometimes now, isn't it?
Not sure. I don't use carbon tet too much, so carbon tet would have to be honestly F tier for me.
No, I personally agree. I've never used carbon tetrachloride. I don't even know why it's on this list. Yeah, never used it. It's also toxic, right?
No, yeah, it's very toxic. So it's
So yeah, dude, I don't like that. Oh, dude, I gotta put chloroform in the A tier, dude. It's like the most common deuterated solvent that we use for NMRs. I use it almost every day, I would have to say.
Same, chloroform. It's a good solvent for things that DCM won't really work for sometimes, a little bit more polar. Definitely A tier in my mind.
Easily, yeah. Very quickly, I will just say DCM is my favorite solvent. Kind of by default for me, DCM is S tier because it's almost like the only solvent I use. Beautiful. So tell me why.
It's highly carcinogenic. It goes through your gloves, doesn't it?
So it does go through your gloves, yeah.
I've not had this issue before.
Honestly, DCM's pretty high for me though, so
I have used it. I try to avoid it at all costs. Try to use ethyl acetate in place of DCM when I can, just to like dissolve and transfer things and stuff.
But the other really good thing with DCM versus like ethyl acetate is that DCM is like has a really low boiling point, which is I mean, again, ethyl acetate is not that high, right? It's like 70 something, but
I also do use it a lot when I use when I just run columns, DCM methanol, classic combo.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Me personally, I'd put it in the A tier.
Okay, no, I think that's fair. Yeah, I'll put it in A tier. So dichloroethane is a solvent that I've never used. James, do you guys have dichloroethane on your SBS?
We love dichloroethane. I mean, I personally don't use it as much as my other lab members, but I know people who do 3-component coupling in their lab, like they religiously use DCE like daily probably. They love it, and it's one of the best solvents that where 3-component reactions work. For the shout out to the element group, look up our paper. Yeah, DC. Just for that, I mean, I'm thinking A, B tier.
Yeah, I give it B tier. Let's say you're doing reaction and DCM is a good solvent, but you find like you need to heat it just a little bit higher than like 30 degrees. DCE in that case would be a good alternative because DCE has a higher boiling point and you might be able to get your reaction jump started. So for that, I'd probably rank it maybe B tier.
I don't know, dude. B plus, dude.
Let's round up. Let's put it in the 8.
All right, cool. All right, so this is actually a good opportunity to say. So the three of us, well, I guess historically, kind of back when we were all at Yale at the same time, kind of worked on 3 different types of chemistry. And so you guys may not know that I'm kind of more on the chemical biology side. And so I use a lot of synthetic chemistry in order to access chemical tools that I can use for lifestyle imaging and these types of things. But so James mentioned that he's in the Elman lab, which is kind of more so a methodology development type lab. They do a lot of medicinal chemistry. Historically, Anthony did a lot of total synthesis, but now he's actually working in a medicinal chemistry lab as well. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are getting the kind of the full gamut of synthetic chemistry expertise here. So, all right, sweet. So diethyl ether. Diethyl ether is another really good one.
I used to run a lot of columns in ether. Drawback about ether, though, is that it's often stabilized with something called BHT. Take the chance of having residual BHT in your sample, which might not be desirable.
And depending on what your lab job is, you probably have to like check ether, like for radicals and stuff often, which is kind of whack if you ask me. And I also think that diethyl ether is like a little bit too low boiling a lot of times, like to the point of inconvenience. I don't know, James, what do you think, dude?
It's really not that high for me. Maybe like C or something, but it's not toxic. So I'll take a. Or is it toxic? I don't think it's toxic.
I just pretend that everything is toxic.
I was gonna say, yeah. It's more of a question of like, what's the most
how toxic?
Exactly.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I think it is just one of the kind of iconic organic solvents. So I think it can't really go any lower than B tier for sure.
B tier seems appropriate.
And there's 2 ethers for some reason, so it's gonna rank them both right there. All right, this is dimethyl acetamide.
Was doing an allylation reaction on a pretty hindered center, and we found that DMF just we weren't able to really solubilize our inorganic base as good as we could with DMF, so we switched to DMA, and reaction worked like a charm. So in that case, I would have to rank it probably no lower than B tier, because DMA really came and saved the day for us on that project.
All right, we got dimethoxyethane.
One that one might use when you need a hot ether. So if you're doing something that ether has worked for, but you realize you might need to heat a little bit more, you might be able to get away with DME, dimethoxyethane.
In the off chance that there are any like undergraduate chemistry majors or anything like this watching at the moment, so you're kind of getting a good feel. So Anthony, for example, has a lot of experience with all these different types of solvents because he did total synthesis for his grad work, where you do a kind of a very wide range of reactions. And so if you're looking for something that would be really good training simply for developing as an organic chemist, maybe to then work in medicinal chemistry or any other field, really, I think that total synthesis is a good area for that, because again, you do get to do such a wide range of reactions.
Definitely support folks going in total synthesis if that's what gets you going, but methodology has its perks too.
Absolutely, yeah. So actually, let me just comment. So it's not all good, and I think that Anthony will agree with this as well, and that the total synthesis is likely to be the kind of chemistry where you'll be most likely to hate your life as well during grad school. So just keep that in mind. What do you guys think about DMF?
Personally, I've used it for one reaction. I feel like I've read that it's toxic, right, to your liver or something.
I have a question as to why DMF should ever even be able to access your liver. Like what are you doing in lab that DMF even gets to your liver?
Like if you're breathing it in, it just makes you feel uncomfortable just knowing that it's more.
But it's like super non-volatile, right?
Oh, that was also going to mention that. Like, you need like a pretty aggressive rotovap to rotovap this off. So it's not about it.
What's good about using DMF is that in some instances you can do your amide coupling and then immediately take that mixture and purify it on reverse phase HPLC. And in 10 minutes, you can have pure product. For that, just in and of itself, I would have to rank DMF pretty high, maybe A tier.
Ooh, I don't know, dude. I think that the major drawback for DMF is its boiling point. Very often for me, if I can avoid using DMF for a reaction, I will. Because very, very rarely do I do a reaction that goes straight onto the reverse phase. And so, I don't know. It's annoying to have to wash it out. Like you said, James, sorry. It's like you need a pretty good vacuum in order to pull it off on the rotovap a lot of times. So I think that it kind of has to be counted against it, because again, like the experience of using it can be kind of trash sometimes.
I think just our experiences are just opposite. Ours, man.
So I definitely second having to remove 100 mils of DMF. It's not fun. You got to do aqueous washes, and if you have any left over, you're gonna be pumping on it for a long time. So I get it.
I think DMF is a B tier.
Okay.
Do you guys ever use deuterated dimethyl sulfoxide? Because I know it's very common, but I personally don't, because this also has a very high boiling point.
Yeah, you just never get your stuff back.
Yeah, I don't care for DMSO for that reason.
So from a chemical biology standpoint, like the high boiling point is actually good. So because we make a lot of our standards and like a lot of our samples in DMSO, because you can essentially always assume that the concentration will remain the same, right? And so I use DMSO a lot for that reason, but I would dare not ever set up a reaction in DMSO or take an NMR in DMSO. I only put things in DMSO if I never intend to get them back out.
I agree with that assessment. I've been putting my compounds for assays DMSO, but again, I don't ever expect to see those again. So
James, any final notes on DMSO?
No, I would say, I'd put it in C or D, but it's up to you guys.
I think C tier seems solid.
Yeah.
All right, ethanol.
Very recently used ethanol when I was using the Chiroids PLC to separate out the enantiomers, a racemic mixture into its pure enantiomers. And so ethanol, for the compounds that I'm making, which are a bunch of tetrahydropyridines, like ethanol and hexanes, was the solvent system that was used to separate out most of these, to isolate these pure enantiomers. So for that reason, I like ethanol. Also, obviously, I do enjoy like a drink once in a while. So I would put ethanol in the S tier, to be honest. Ethanol is it's just pervasive throughout common society. So
yeah. I wouldn't shy away from ethanol, and like James, I enjoy an ethanolic beverage from time to time. So I'd rank it pretty high. I wouldn't be mad at an S tier ranking.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It's kind of like an all-around good solvent, especially right now, right, with hand sanitizer.
Yeah, I was gonna
ethanol
say that. When this coronavirus stuff started, one of the first things we did, I feel like, was just make 70% ethanol water solutions to disinfect it. So it's very, very useful these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Ethyl acetate, another one of the classic.
This has to be S tier for me. Polar, separates well from water, easy to remove. It's the polar component of most purification systems. I think ethyl acetate just has to rank at the top.
Yeah, completely agree. And also, this is not an important fact, but I would also say that out of all the solvents,
it smells the best.
It smells the best.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so I'm definitely not going to be encouraging anyone to start solvent. So if you're watching this, disregard some of these comments. Just having a good time. All right. Ethyl acetate hexanes separation is like fundamental organic chemistry. I think it's kind of hard to not do that at some point during your PhD. Hexanes. The only thing about ethyl acetate is it shows up in everyone's NMR at some point, which is kind of annoying. But
right.
That's just the fault of the user, I guess, for not pulling it off. All right, so hexanes.
It's probably also, along with ethyl acetate, one of the most common solvents that you end up using. When I first joined this group, I had a postdoc mentor who never used hexanes. He always used pentane instead.
Hey.
Okay. I thought this was going to be another story that we probably won't share on here, in case the JST is watching or something. Nah, I know that you have another hexane story from your first year that we won't talk about. We'll talk about it off here.
Yeah.
So what are we thinking? A tier, B tier, maybe somewhere in that range?
A tier, I would say. For me. It's so common, but it's not as nice as ethyl acetate.
Yes.
Yeah,
perfect.
No, that's a good assessment. Yeah. Isopropanol.
I only throw it in the rotavat trap.
Yeah, that's basically
all I do.
I feel So in undergrad, I used to quench reactions with it. Right? You would do terbucanol, isopropanol, ethanol. It's been a long time since I've done that.
Soy chemistry is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make do a Diels alder but with sulfonyl fluorides, right? And then there was a paper from the 60s that achieved that apparently with isopropanol as a solvent, but I tried it with my adapted system and it didn't work. I think my dyeing might have been too reactive, I'm not sure, but it didn't work is all. So I did use it, but it didn't work. So Yeah, it's pretty low for me.
IPA is pretty low for me. Nothing really to add.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and it's definitely not as bad as benzene, actually. So maybe C.
It's certainly not as bad as carbon tetrachloride. So definitely not F.
Yeah.
No, I think C too. Methanol for me is definitely up there.
It's up
Methanol
there.
is one of my
It's really
favorites.
up there.
I mean,
So,
I would be willing to throw it in S tier. I want to see if you guys have a counter argument for S tier.
I would say that's pretty accurate. I also use methanol a lot. I've only ever really dealt with two deuterated solvents, one being chloroform and the other being methanol for more polar compounds. So like, I'm with it. You drink methanol, you go blind. It's the only negative thing that I've heard, but nobody's trying to drink methanol.
Yeah, who's gonna drink methanol?
That's like the bootlegging thing from like the 20s.
Yeah. No, that's what it was.
Moonshine.
Yeah. Other than that, very, very useful solvent. Yeah. It's up there.
Agreed. It can be high.
So-
S tier.
S tier,
Yeah,
Very solid.
I'm not mad at it.
Nitromethane, not a fan of. To me, this is not a solvent. This is a reagent.
I don't know that I've ever used it myself. I think I maybe came across one procedure that required nitromethane and discarded that procedure and looked for something else.
Right.
It's pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, definitely nothing's as bad as carbon tet, but I'm thinking D tier, tier for sure. Pentane. So, James, I heard you make an argument for pentane just now. I never actually have used pentane, so I was going to ask why you guys use pentane in place of hexanes, if ever.
I don't know. In my lab at Yale, we were sort of discouraged from using pentane unless it was necessary because it's a little bit more expensive than hexane. Pentane has its utility, but I guess I would rank pentane similarly to hexanes.
I don't know. I feel like it's not as ubiquitous as hexanes, right? It's kind of, it seems like a bougie solvent, right? It's like, it's basically hexanes, but so it's, if hexanes is chicken, pentane is duck. It's like, it's the same thing. It's just a little bit more expensive. B tier, all right.
I mean, just because, like you said, it's not hexanes. It's just better hexanes.
All right.
Ooh, THF.
I mean, S tier.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Definitely up there.
I think during chemistry, you doing anything THF, you probably use it every day.
First reaction that I ever ran at Yale, the reaction solvent was THF. I was making some amines. I use THF very frequently. Very commonly used with rhodium 1 chemistry as well.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of lithium halogen exchange chemistry, and all of that is performed in THF for me. So I use that very frequently. Toluene.
I like toluene. It's definitely better than benzene. Toluene if you really need to heat something up, toluene is a good solvent to do that. And I've been doing some cross couplings lately that use toluene, and they seem to be working pretty nicely. So I like toluene.
I believe it's near toxin as well. So I don't know. I don't personally use it that much. So maybe B tier, I would say.
Yeah, B tier. Okay. I agree.
My gut's pointing it towards B tier.
I'm not a fan, and I'll tell you guys why. I will put it in B tier, but the main reason I'm not a fan of toluene is because I think the bottle looks just like hexanes. And my first year of graduate school, I poured toluene into my when I was doing a separation instead of hexanes, and it completely destroyed everything. Especially since it was on the automated column, which shows you like a UV readout, and everything was just absorbing. I was like, dude, what's going on?
For tough purifications, I've heard from somebody that toluene acetone was a good solvent system.
That's a Miller Lab thing. I've heard that from them, and they swear by that. I've never needed to do that.
I've never done that either, but I heard somebody say that when all else is failing, toluene acetone might be the way to go.
Yeah, but Tyson, I did that too in grad school. As you pointed out, the bottles look pretty similar, and if you're not paying attention, you can easily grab a toluene bottle in place of hexane.
Yeah, it's the worst. Dude, the last one is water, man.
S tier, man. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, universal solvent, S tier.
Right. It's funny because it's like the best solvent overall, but I feel like from an organic chemistry perspective,
it's the worst one.
Yeah, because it's like the one that we need to keep out of everything.
Yeah,
right.
Again, these reactive solvents. All right, so we'll go ahead and call it right there. So this is the official organic solvent tier list, remember, endorsed by me, Tyson, my boy right here, Dr. Anthony Scroops, and of course, my boy James Quan right here. So if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely make sure to like and subscribe, and send this to all your chemistry friends as well, so you guys can continue to argue over it. If you think there's any solvents that we ranked incorrectly, definitely make sure and let me know in the comments. All right, see you guys in the next one.
All right.
Peace.
That was actually
That was fun. That wasn't terrible.
Yeah, that was enjoyable. Yeah, I ain't had a good time.
I feel like this is a very accurate ranking.
Yeah, I think it was solid.